Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praise be Jesus Christ. And welcome to this live broadcast from the northern Italian city of Trieste at the Generali Convention Center. As you can hear and see if you're following on television, Pope Francis has just arrived here for a half-day pastoral visit. He's being warmly welcomed to this Generali Convention Center. And this first event of this half-day visit is the final session of the 50th Italian Catholic Social Week. The Pope is here to conclude the annual event with an address to the over 900 delegates from dioceses and associations across Italy. We welcome all of you who are joining us, and we go directly to Cardinal Matteo Maria Zuppi, the President of the Italian Bishops' Conference, who is welcoming Pope Francis to this event.
Grazie perché la sua presenza è una benedizione e ci aiuterà a vivere non una settimana, ma tutti i giorni.
Dear Holy Father, says Cardinal Zuppi, first of all, we want to tell you that we have great joy in our hearts and are happy about this meeting. Thank you, because your presence is a blessing and will help us to live not just one week, but every day as social and shared. How can a Christian not be social? And you are, in a way, the first social poet. Thank you, Holy Father, for never tiring of seeking peace and reminding everyone to be artisans of peace. And in these days, I might mention that there has been no victimhood, no complaints. And perhaps some of you have seen the sign that is on Pope Francis's door, Your Holiness's door, in the Santa Marta that said, "No complaints." And so here there have been no complaints. But there's been much joy and many problems to be addressed and to be loved. The Church in Italy always and only has Jesus as its center. And therefore, our neighbor, starting with our smallest brothers and sisters. My thanks go to the Scientific and Organizing Committee for their preparatory work. Thanks to Bishop Luigi Renna,
che ha fatto un po' il doppio lavoro tra
Catania e un po' tutta l'Italia. Effort, and thanks to all those who have contributed in their various capacities, all of whom are important. Thank you to this organizing committee and all those of you who have worked so hard.
Un grazie al Vescovo Enrico Trevisi.
Thanks also to Bishop Enrico Trevisi,
alla sua Chiesa. Ieri l'applauso più... Un tempo c'era l'applausometro, adesso, ecco, sempre pericoloso. Ma l'applauso più grande qui è stato per I volontari.
I note that the largest applause yesterday was for the volunteers at this event.
Perché sono stati generosissimi.
Because they've been so generous with their time. We thank them and all of the Church. We thank the city of Trieste, the mayor and the Friuli Venezia Giulia region. We have felt at home, and we found a true unity of Italy square. This is a land that unites East and West, North and South, a point of meeting and knowledge. We have found much culture of living together, the fruit of the two famous lungs that we need to breathe well. We also found some wounds, legacies of terrible pain from all sides. We recall, as the Pope has said, that his own grandfather fought in Piave. But meetings like this help to make differences, what they are meant to be, a wealth for all.
No, l'abbiamo vissuta. Come in questi anni nel cammino sinodale delle chiese
in these days, we did not talk about participation, we lived it, as in these years in the synodal path of the churches in Italy. We came here full of desire, charged with social experiences, with reality, not with studies or workshops. I must tell you that after these days, our desire has grown, our desire for participation, a desire to make this world better, to help the living democracy of our country and of Europe, not one of individual well-being, but of the common good, which is the well-being of all.
Alle sfide vogliamo rispondere da cristiani, vogliamo dare frutti di democrazia, cioè di uguaglianza, di diritti.
We want to respond to challenges as Christians. We want to bear fruits of democracy, meaning equality, rights, and duties for all. At the heart of democracy are people, and an attitude of trust and hope. Catholics in Italy are not a lobby defending particular interests and will never become partisan, because the only part they love and freely point out to everyone is that of the person, every person, any person, from the beginning to the natural end of life. No passports, whatever their passports, and not just any love, but the love that Jesus teaches us. The other evening we listened to an orchestra. There was a concert, an orchestra, and there were many instruments, and each musician had prepared, as they should have, to give their best. Every instrument is important, but in an orchestra, all need to tune into each other. This is how a wonderful harmony and symphony is achieved. And this is how we think of democracy. Thank you, because by uniting the spiritual and the social, as Jesus asks, we can help the world to be what God wants, the common home of all brothers and sisters, a symphony of love and differences that sing the glory of God and of humanity whom He cares for. Thank you, Holy Father. And that was Cardinal Matteo Maria Zuppi. And we didn't have a chance earlier, but we welcome all of you who are joining us through various apps, and especially our partner broadcasting stations, including EWTN TV, Catholic Faith Network in America, Shalom World TV, Atma Darshan TV, Catholic TV, and Luminous Radio in India. My name is Devin Watkins.
Ho la gioia di affidarle il lavoro di mesi di preparazione e di queste 4 giornate di riflessione.
And here we have Bishop Luigi Renna,
che si sono realizzate non solo in questo luogo, ma per tutte le piazze della città.
Greeting Pope Francis.
Abbiamo attinto all'inchiostro della
Holy Father, at the conclusion of this 50th edition of the Italian Catholic Social Week, I have the joy of presenting to you the work of months of preparation and these 4 days of reflection and discussion. We have drawn from the ink of democracy to strengthen the bond between history and the future. 2 words stand out, concrete translations of the Church's social doctrine and your magisterium, participation and person. Both start with the letter P. It is no coincidence.
In questi giorni ci siamo incontrati con oltre 1000 delegati delle diocesi italiane.
P is for politics and a noble expression of charity, service to the common good. In these days we have met with over 1,000 delegates from Italian dioceses, with representatives of associations and movements who lived their testimony in civil society, with many participants from this welcoming city. Together we have found here the place to rediscover ourselves as a people ready to start anew.
A riprendere il suo cammino nella vita quotidiana con delle grandi sfide, quelle della partecipazione e quella di una cittadinanza vera.
Embrace our challenges and start anew together. Now begins the time of responsibility to ensure that democratic life leaves no one behind and continues to be inclusive and respectful of everyone's dignity.
Vogliamo impegnarci su questo perché la vita democratica non lasci indietro nessuno e non smetta di essere inclusiva e rispettosa della dignità di ciascuno.
Embrace this challenge so that we leave no one behind.
Che ci ha dato un illuminante parole. Abbiamo Presidente, anche il Presidente della CEI, Santità. Abbiamo raccontato con parole.
We have recounted with words and through the many good practices in place in our country that the alphabet of democracy is already present in our daily lives, and that it animates social friendship through dialogue. We have also experienced that being part of the people is to be part of a common identity made up of social and cultural bonds, as well as of faith. In these days, we have sought to recover that sense of people that we must never take for granted. We share all of this with you, Holy Father. Illumine us with your word, and illumine our desire for participation, the dream for some still distance of creating the conditions for the common good, so that the seeds God has placed in each of us may germinate in the soul of democracy, here in our Italy, in Europe, of which we feel a full part, and in our world, and where we want to be witnesses of peace. Thank you, Your Holiness. And that was Bishop Luigi Renna. And now we prepare to listen to the Holy Father's concluding speech here at the 50th Italian Catholic Social Week.
Illustri autorità, cari fratelli vescovi, signor Cardinale.
Dear distinguished authorities, dear brother bishops, cardinals, brothers and sisters, good morning.
Ringrazio il Cardinale Zuppi.
I thank Cardinal Zuppi and Archbishop Baturi for inviting me to share this concluding session with you. I greet Archbishop Renna and the Scientific and Organizing Committee of the Catholic Social Weeks. On behalf of everyone, I express gratitude to Bishop Trevisi for the hospitality of the Diocese of Trieste. The first time I heard someone mention the city of Trieste was from my grandfather, who fought with the 14th on Piave. He taught us many songs. One of them was about Trieste. The General Cadorna wrote to the Queen, and she wrote him a postcard of the city. It rhymes in Italian. This was the first time that I heard about the city of Trieste. This was the 50th Italian Catholic Social Week. This history of the weeks intertwines with the history of Italy, and it says a lot. It speaks of a church that is sensitive to the transformations of society and eager to contribute to the common good. Building on this experience, you have delved into a very timely theme, at the heart of democracy, participation through history and into the future. Blessed Giuseppe Toniolo, who initiated this event in 07 stated that democracy can be defined as that civil order in which all social, legal, and economic forces, in the fullness of their hierarchical development, cooperate proportionally for the common good, ultimately benefiting the lower classes predominantly. This is what Blessed Torniolo said. In light of this definition, it is evident that democracy is not in good health in today's world. This state concerns and worries us because human well-being is at stake, and nothing human can be alien to us. In Italy, the democratic order matured after World War II, thanks in part to the decisive contribution of Catholics. We can be proud of this history, which was also influenced by the experience of the social weeks, and without idealizing the past, we must learn from it to take responsibility for building something good in our own time. This attitude is found in the pastoral note with which the Italian bishops restored the social weeks in 1988. I quote the objectives: to give meaning to everyone's commitment to the transformation of society, to pay attention to people who remain outside or on the margins of successful economic processes and mechanisms, to give space to social solidarity in all its forms, to support the return of an ethic concerned with the common good, to give meaning to the development of the country, understood as an overall improvement in the quality of life, collective coexistence, democratic participation, and authentic freedom. This vision, rooted in the social doctrine of the Church, embraces certain dimensions of Christian commitment and a gospel reading of social phenomena that are not only relevant to the Italian context, but also represent a warning for the entire human society and the journey of all peoples. Indeed, just as the crisis of democracy crosses various realities and nations, so too does the attitude of responsibility towards social transformations call all Christians, wherever they live and work, in every part of the world. There is an image that sums up all of this, which you have chosen as the symbol of this event, the heart. From this image, I propose 2 reflections to nourish the path ahead. In the first, we can imagine the crisis of democracy as a wounded heart, that which limits participation is set before our eyes. If corruption and illegality reveal a heart attack, different forms of social exclusion must also be a concern. Every time someone is marginalized, the whole body suffers. The throwaway culture creates a city where there is no room for the poor, the unborn, the fragile, the sick, children, women, and young people, the elderly. This is the culture, the throwaway culture. Power becomes self-referential, incapable of listening and serving people. Aldo Moro reminded us that a state is not truly democratic if it is not at the service of humanity, if it does not have the dignity, freedom, and autonomy of the human person as its supreme goal, if it does not respect those social formations in which the human person freely develops and integrates his personality. The very word democracy does not simply coincide with the vote of the people. And in the meantime, what worries me is the reduced number of people who went to vote. What does this mean? It's not only the vote of the people, but it requires creating the conditions for everyone to express themselves and participate. Participation cannot be improvised. It is learned from childhood, and young people must be trained even to develop a critical sense regarding ideological and populist temptations. In this perspective, as I recalled years ago, visiting the European Parliament and the Council of Europe, it is important to highlight the contribution that Christianity can provide today to European cultural and social development within the framework of a correct relationship between religion and society, promoting a fruitful dialogue with the civil community and political institutions, so that illuminating each other and freeing ourselves from the dross of ideology, we can start a common reflection, especially on issues related to human life and the dignity of the person. Ideologies are seductive. Some have compared them to Amelin that played the flute. They come and they seduce, but then they lead you to drown yourself. For this purpose, the principles of solidarity and subsidiarity remain fruitful. Indeed, a people holds together through the bonds that constitute it, and these bonds are strengthened when each person is valued. Every person has value. Every person is important. Democracy always requires the transition from partisanship to participation, from cheering to dialogue. Only when our economic and social system no longer produces even a single victim, a single person cast aside, will we be able to celebrate the feast of universal fraternity. A truly human and fraternal society will be capable of ensuring in an efficient and stable way that each of its members is accompanied at every stage of life, not only by providing for their basic needs, but by enabling them to give the best of themselves. Even though their performance may be less than optimum, their pace slow, or their efficiency limited. Everyone must feel a part of a community project. No one should feel useless. Certain forms of assistance that do not recognize people's dignity are social hypocrisy.
Mi fermo la parola assistenzialismo.
Let me stop for a moment at the word assistentialism.
È nemico della democrazia e nemico dell'amore al prossimo.
Assistentialism is the enemy of democracy and love for our neighbor.
E certe forme di assistenzialismo che non riconoscono la dignità
Certain forms of assistance
ipocrisie sociali.
that do not recognize people's dignity are social hypocrisy.
E cosa c'è dietro questo?
And what's behind all of this? This distance, this social distance, there's indifference.
L'indifferenza è un cancro
And indifference is a cancer of democracy, to keep someone from participating,
La seconda riflessione è
or
un
to refuse to
incoraggiamento a
participate.
partecipare, affinché la
The second
democrazia
reflection is an encouragement to participate, so that democracy resembles a healed heart. I like to think that in our social life, we need to heal our heart, a healed heart. And for this, creativity is needed. If we look around, we see many signs of the Holy Spirit's action in the lives of families and communities, even in the fields of economics, in technology, politics, and society. Let us think of those who have made room within an economic activity for people with disabilities, workers who have given up a right to prevent the dismissal of others, renewable energy communities that promote integral ecology, also taking care of families facing energy poverty, administrators who support birth rates, work, school, educational services, accessible housing, mobility for all, and the integration of migrants. All of these things do not come into a politics that is without participation. It is important to help people participate, to take care of one another, promotes this participation, not just for beneficence or charity's sake, but to bring everyone to participate. Fraternity makes social relationships flourish. And on the other hand, taking care of each other requires courage. To think of ourselves as a single people, not just me and myself. Unfortunately, this category, people, is often misunderstood and can lead to eliminating the very word democracy, or government of the people. However, to assert that society is more than just the sum of individuals, the term people is necessary. It's not populism, but people. Indeed, it is extremely difficult to carry out a long-term project unless it becomes a collective aspiration. A democracy with a healed heart continues to cultivate dreams for the future, engages, and calls for personal and community involvement, to dream of the future and to not be afraid to do so. Let us not be deceived by easy solutions. Let us instead be passionate about the common good,
Come cattolici in questo orizzonte non possiamo accontentarci di una fede marginale o privata.
As Catholics, in this context, we cannot be content with a marginal or a private faith. This means not so much demanding to be heard, but above all having the courage to make proposals on behalf of justice and peace in the public debate. We have something to say, but not with the goal of defending privileges. We must be a voice that denounces and offers solutions in a society often voiceless. Many do not have a voice. This is political love, which does not settle for treating the symptoms, but seeks to address the root causes. This is politics. It is a form of charity that allows politics to rise above its responsibilities and move beyond polarizations. These polarizations impoverish and do not help to understand and tackle challenges. This political charity is a call to the entire Christian community in the distinction of ministries and charisms. Let us train ourselves in this love to circulate it in a world short of civil passion. Let us learn to better walk together as God's people. One of the great politicians that we know about and we have known. Let us learn to better walk as God's people, to be leaven of participation among the people to which we belong. This is an important thing, this political nostalgia. To know people, to get close to people. A politician could be like a shepherd who is ahead, in the midst of, and behind the people. Ahead to lead the people, in the midst of the people to have the smell of the people, and behind to help shepherd forward. A politician who has no contact with people is a theoretician. Giorgio Lapida thought of the protagonism of cities, which do not have the power to make wars, but pay the highest price for them. He envisioned a system of bridges between the cities of the world to create opportunities for unity and dialogue. Following Lapida's example, the Italian Catholic laity should not lack the ability to organize hope. Peace and good political projects can be reborn from the grassroots. Why not revive, support, and multiply efforts for social and political training, starting with young people? Why not share the richness of the Church's social teaching? We can foresee places for discussion and dialogue and foster synergies for the common good. If the synodal process has trained us in community discernment, let the horizon of the Jubilee see us active, pilgrims of hope for the Italy of tomorrow. As disciples of the Risen One, let us never cease to nourish trust, certain that time is greater than space. And let us not forget that. Many times we think that the work of politics is to take up space, but it's not. It's to bet on time, to start processes and not taking up space. Time is greater than space. And I encourage you in your social life to start processes, set things in motion. Whenever a woman gives birth to a child, she begins a process, and we too can do the same.
Questo è il ruolo della Chiesa, coinvolgere nella speranza, perché senza di
This is the role of the Church, to involve in hope, because without it we manage the present, but do not build the future. We do not become prophets of the future. Sisters and brothers, I thank you for your commitment. I bless you and wish you to be artisans of democracy and contagious witnesses of participation. And I ask you, please, to pray for me, because this work is not easy. Thank you. And that was Pope Francis speaking to the 50th Italian Catholic Social Week, which is themed at the heart of democracy. And the Holy Father stands up and says, "Now let us pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil."
Vi benedica Dio Onnipotente, Padre, Figlio e lo Spirito Santo. Amen.
And with that, Pope Francis concludes this Italian Catholic Social Week. In his speech, he spoke to over 900 delegates who have gathered here from dioceses and associations across Italy. They have been at work here this week, as they are every year since 1988, in a tradition that began, as he mentioned, in 1907 with Blessed Giuseppe Toniolo, which it was discontinued at some point after the Second World War, probably in the 1950s, and then picked up again in 1988.
Chiedo a tutti di riprendere posto in attesa del biglietto che verrà distribuito.
The MC inviting everyone to sit, take up their seats as Pope Francis moves to his next event. After this, Pope Francis will travel and by motor car to the Mass, which will conclude this 50th Italian Catholic Social Week. And please join us in a few minutes for the closing Mass that will be presided by Pope Francis. Please visit the Vatican News web portal, our Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube accounts for coverage of today's event and other Vatican and world news. On behalf of Vatican Media, I'd like to thank our in-studio audio technician, Adriano Vitali, and Thaddeus Jones, our audio coordinator, and all of our media partners for joining us today. Blessed Sunday to you all. Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praise be Jesus Christ.
Man mano che avete ricevuto il biglietto potete accomodarvi e salire sulle navette. Buona celebrazione a tutti e buona domenica.
Ten years of sharing the peace of Christ. Shalom World, God's own channel. Every story starts with a word. A word that encompasses the story itself. A word that enhances the passion behind it. For us, that word is grateful.